king and the queen lived together happily. The queen was very spiritual. So one day the king became very interested in what is this that you do? And then the queen taught him Vedanta, that you are not the body, not the mind, you are the witness consciousness beyond that. And these, the pointers. And these are the practices, the meditation practices to realize this. And he said, this is wonderful. Why didn't you tell me earlier? So I'm going to take a sabbatical. And he said, you run the kingdom. I'm going to go off to, of course he's still a king, so his palace in the forest on the mountain top or somewhere, meditate on himself as the witness. And he did that. Months passed and he became absorbed in his real self, in samadhi, and he stayed like that. Months passed. After some time he had a doubt. He came back to the capital and asked the queen, what you taught me, my dear, that is wonderful. And I have realized it. And my life is full of bliss because of that. So I am so grateful to you. But I have this question. She said, what is the question? The question is, you know all this. You have realized all this. But why do you not stay in samadhi? Why do you go about like an ordinary queen about your business? So why aren't you remaining in seclusion and absorbed in the witness consciousness? Then she said, I haven't given you the entire teaching. Now that you ask, here's the rest of it. This is the second step. You see, we did 2 steps. The second step is this. Now that you open your eyes and look around, the world which you are trying to cut away, to remain absorbed in your spiritual self, this world too is that spiritual self. You can find that same reality with your eyes open when you look around at the kingdom, at the people, at the palace and everybody else. All the affairs of the world are also soaked in divinity. Now you can see divinity in everything. So that was the second part of the teaching. Then only true non-duality is attained. This is the beautiful story of the king and the queen Jodha. I think the story goes on. When the king and the queen, they teach it to the ministers, and the ministers teach it to their wives and the wife. And so it spreads, and everybody in the capitals, everybody in the kingdom becomes enlightened. And I remember vaguely, I'm not very sure because this is how general this is. So the story ends with everybody in the kingdom is now enlightened, and they're waiting for their karma to be exhausted, so that this is all that's the end of the kingdom. That's why you don't see the kingdom anymore. And how do they live? Exactly what this was said. They went about their business. It's not that everybody became a monk and ran off to the forest. They went on doing exactly what they were doing earlier. So Sri Ramakrishna says, a clerk was imprisoned for something. Maybe he worked for Enron or something like that. And then, after having served his term in prison, he comes out. Now Sri Ramakrishna says, what will he do when he comes out of the jail? Is he going to turn some sorts of turn capers or something? He's going to go back to his old job as a clerk. In Bengali, I think he says, he'll go back to his old job as a clerk. But now he's an enlightened person. So what does that mean? Once you realize what you are, the person that you thought yourself to be, that will continue to live as it is living. But you are free of it now. I like that saying. This person will never be free, but you will be free of the person. Free of the person means the person will still hang around. As long as karma goes on till this body exists, this limited body, mind, personality will still be there. But you know you are not it. And it can live its life in joy. You are not it, but it is not apart from you. Does that make sense? You are not this little person, but this little person is nothing apart from you. It is you, it's like a limitation or a manifestation of you. Unenlightened person thinks I am the person and that's it, there's nothing more to it. Alright, comments, questions?
Yes. Reading, when you started the reading, the first couple of sentences, talked about the role of grace. I keep pondering on the role of grace and illumination and non-dual path. How does that...
The role of grace.
We haven't mentioned it in the entire book.
Right.
The word never came up.
The role of grace seems to be a very dualistic way of looking at it. God is gracious upon me and then. But Sri Ramakrishna says it's only by the grace of God that you realize God. It is not that this particular work or that particular practice is something that will give you enlightenment. It is actually by the grace of God that man gets enlightenment. But he says you have to do something with longing. Two things he mentions. You have to do a practice. What practice? He is very liberal about that. Could be prayer, could be meditation, could be this religion or that religion, but hold on to something sincerely. There must be something that you do systematically for something. And well, when he means some period of time, it could be 3 years, 30 years, 3 lifetimes. For some time, and even more difficult, do it with longing, with genuine longing for God. Then the rest is the grace of God. I think even that longing is the grace of God. Now, if you asked more, your question was more specific. What is the role of grace in Advaita Vedanta? You would expect not much, but actually there are interesting. Sankaracharya himself speaks at many occasions about the grace of God. He calls it anugraha, the gracious aspect of God. What does he mean by God? What would Sankaracharya mean by God? Saguna Brahman, consciousness with Maya. Saguna Brahman, consciousness plus the power of Maya. That is God in Advaita Vedanta. Saguna Brahman, Ishvara, these are the terms. That is the closest that you get in Advaita Vedanta to the God of religion. God, the word God, refers to the conception of God in Abrahamic religions. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. All of it is the same concept, a personal God. So the personal God in Hinduism is Saguna Brahman. Consciousness, which is impersonal. But with the power of Maya, now you can worship it as Vishnu or Shiva or Durga or Kali in multiple forms, multiple names. It's all the same reality. So in that sense, Hinduism is not really polytheistic. It's one reality which can be worshipped in endless ways. Alright. So in the personal God, grace is relevant there. You would expect to depend on the grace of personal God. But in this very impersonal approach, I am that, where is the role of grace? Strangely enough, grace is talked about quite often in Advaita Vedanta. One of the most radical texts of Advaita Vedanta is Avadhuta Gita. It's at par with Ashtavakra. Very radical text. The first verse of Avadhuta Gita is Ishvara Anugraha Deva Punsam Advaita Vasana, which means it is by the special grace of God that, wait for it, that you have an interest in Aparoksanubhuti. that you have an interest in Advaita, in the desire for non-duality, the interest to become enlightened, the non-dual enlightenment. This interest, this pull, it is the special grace of God.
It seems to me that being an Advaitist and accepting the ultimate reality is I am that it doesn't neuter the power of Ishvara. Ishvara is ultimately part of the dualistic system, and when you get out of the dualistic system, you don't need Ishvara, you don't need grace. But while you're working through it, you're still there and you use it.
Absolutely. It does not nullify the power of Ishvara. Not at all. Sri Ramakrishna used to use the word Maya Ilaka, the kingdom or the territory of Maya. As long as you are in the territory of Maya, you are subject to Maya. No matter how much you say I am Brahman or whatever it is, even it's only by the grace of Maya, of the Divine Mother, you are able to say I am Brahman. It's only by the grace of the Divine Mother that we get Shankara and the texts and the opportunity to learn it and the retreat. All of it is furnished by the Divine Mother. So one had better acknowledge that. That's what Totapuri learned from Sri Ramakrishna. He didn't care for God with form. He didn't care for Saguna Brahman, Ishvara. So when Sri Ramakrishna would talk about the mother, Totapuri would smile derisively. At first he thought Sri Ramakrishna meant his own mother. Then he realized, oh, he means the mother in the temple, Kali. He wouldn't go to the temple, he didn't bother with Kali. And he would make fun. Brahman is the only reality. All this was good, he told Sri Ramakrishna till now, but now you have come to the real thing. Aparoksanubhuti, here it is, please forget all that stuff. I mean, he didn't say exactly those words, I'm making it up. But he did say something like, for example, Sri Ramakrishna had the habit of, in the dusk, he had a good way of calculating dusk. When he could not count the individual hairs on his hand, it was too dark to count the individual hairs on his hand, that's dusk. And that's the time to clap his hands and take the name of God. Rama, Rama, Krishna, Krishna, Hare, Hare, like that. And you can imagine Totapuri teaching him Aparoksanubhuti. Suddenly Sri Ramakrishna starts doing that. And Totapuri is understandably irritated. He says, what are you doing? Are you making chapatis? In North India, in the villages, they make chapati like this. And Sri Ramakrishna says, I'm taking the name of God and you're saying I'm making chapati. What's that? But then Totapuri had to learn the lesson that all his independence, his realization of Brahman, his Nirvikalpa Samadhi, his absolute unconcern for the world, he wandered the world absolutely free of it, a classic Jivan Mukta. All of that was by the grace of Divine Mother. That also is by the grace of Divine Mother.
You had to set stone on
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So, the conditions are provided by the Divine Mother. There is a book to answer your question directly. 2 more points about it. Role of grace in Advaita Vedanta. There is a verse in the Kathopanishad. Yamevesha vrinute tasyesha vibrunute tanum swam. Who realizes God? Or who becomes enlightened? Who realizes the Atman or Brahman in the Advaitic sense? Same question which was asked here. And the answer is also very similar. The Upanishad says, the one whom the Atman chooses, to that one the Atman reveals itself. Exactly the language almost. The language of God. What did Sri Ramakrishna say? After that, the grace of God, it enables the person to realize God. The one whom the Atman chooses, to that one the Atman reveals itself. That's the exact translation of the Upanishadic. Now this is a problem for Shankara. Atman chooses and Atman reveals itself. Atman is you yourself. All you need to do is come to class, follow the pointers and realize that you are the Atman. That's it. There is this question of Atman choosing and so he has to swing into action and write his commentary to make things straight. So he says, whom does the Atman choose? Very beautiful commentary. Commentary on this. He says, whom does the Atman choose? The Atman chooses the one who chooses the Atman. The Atman chooses you if you choose the Atman. That means if you want to realize it, you will realize it. Which is also fine with Sri Ramakrishna. If you ask with longing, God will really reveal it. When Sri Ramakrishna speaks the language of bhakti, Shankara is speaking the language of jnana, knowledge. But do you see how they sound very similar?
They're the same.
They're the same. And one more point. There is a book, The Role of Grace in Shankara's Thought. The exact words are forgotten. If you Google it, you'll find it. I think Mankovisky or I forget the name. It's an American scholar. He has gone through all the works of Shankara and found out wherever Shankara refers to grace. The role of grace in Shankara, or the role of grace in Advaita, the role of grace in Shankara. If you look it up. It's a big book. Recent publication. It's like he's a PhD work or research work. I just wanted to mention it.
So Totapuri apparently taught Sri Ramakrishna about Advaita Vedanta, the formless God. And then Sri Ramakrishna, every time he tried to go beyond the threshold of Maya, he saw Mother Kali preventing him from going there. And finally he said that by by the sword of knowledge, he had to cut asunder the
Form of
the form of Maya, which was a life form to him, and then he could go beyond that. So, that's a beautiful story, and I would like your commentary on that.
Nothing to comment on that. Nothing to comment on that. What is there to comment?
Well, it must be hard. It must have been very hard for Sri Ramakrishna to cut something that he believed in very deeply, and then he had to cross. So,
Yes, it was hard. Because if your mind is totally concentrated on one thing and one thing only, to give that up is very difficult. We have our pet desires, likes, prejudices, but we have a few of them. It's difficult to give up even one of them. But suppose you have nothing else in life except that one thing, and everything is poured into it, and to transcend that also is difficult. You can imagine how difficult it is.
In India there are many saints who are illiterate, but still they realize God. See, God is all knowledge. The illiterate saint, they got the knowledge without recourse to tendency of previous birth. Like Ramakrishna transferred all his powers to Vivekananda just before passing away.
Yes, I think it is quite interesting that Sri Ramakrishna was not illiterate, but he was practically so. He was not a trained academician in that sense. We'll talk about it tomorrow. So he did not get. See, when you talk about Vivekananda, he was enormously well read. Abhidananda was enormously well read in both Eastern and Western literature. Now, that might create an idea in our minds that you need to be a scholar to be a saint. Sri Ramakrishna was not at all like that. He went directly to God, and all his wisdom is fresh from God, not recycled from books. A saint can be both. Vivekananda had both direct experience plus academic knowledge. That is the beauty of the reason why somebody is illiterate. Sri Ramakrishna did not like it if people called him illiterate. He would protest. How much have I heard? He would say,
Yeah, because he used to go to all those monks to...
or they came to him.
Yeah.
So, yes. So knowledge actually, spiritual knowledge at least, it doesn't depend on reading books.
But
When M first comes to meet Sri Ramakrishna, the first meeting here, yes, he asks the maid servant outside the door, so does he live here, the saint? She says, yes, he is in there, you can go in. Does he read a lot of books? And she says, books, oh my, no. It's all on his tongue, that is all the knowledge is on his lips, so he doesn't have to read books. She says, oh my goodness, no, he doesn't read books. Well, M was surprised. It's written that M was surprised. He thought to be a very profound person, he had to read lots of books. He was a schoolmaster.
Maharaj, not yet have I started the practice of silence.
Let's not practice more.
I haven't started this practice of silence, and I really must. But before I do, I wanted to admit that I do like to inquire of all that I cross their paths. So, also the kitchen staff. So they were sitting and eating, and I know them all, and I know them quite well, and we're fond of each other. So I walked over when they were eating, and I said, well, I hope you're eating well. You feed us so well. So then they said, sit down, and I sat down. And they said, what are you doing here? So I said, well, the best person would be to ask the Swami. So they wanted to know more about you. So in my feeble way, I did what I could, Maharaj, and I'm sure I did do no justice. And they said, what is he teaching you? Well, the lake was there, Maharaj, and so I told them about the lake analogy, about saying what our true nature is. Like, well, Maharaj wasn't really anything. But one of them said, oh, that's complex. I said, yes.
That's what?
It takes lifetimes, I said. Then one of them, Maharaj,
Complex.
one of them said, as she was walking with me, he said, I was taught to believe from a very early age that God is good, ordered, direction. And I've been thinking about that and trying to draw parallels. It just sounds quite fun. I wanted to submit it to you.
So they don't get oriented to their group's activities, huh? I bet they would be curious what we're doing,
Yeah.
especially when we do our prayers around the meal.
I'm sure they have lots of strange groups passing.
This morning, please don't say there's nothing to be said, because I am hoping that we do. I was trying to draw parallels, but Maharaj, God is good, ordered direction.
What's the last?
Good, ordered direction. What is God? God is good, ordered direction.
G-O-D.
Yes.
Good.
Ordered direction. So
Yeah,
it's the
G-O-D.
consistent, or is that parallel?
Good orderly direction.
What is the saying? Yeah.
Oh, my friend said something more like
God is an acronym in that sense.
That is what I said.
Yeah, that's
God
what
is
I said.
G-O-D.
Yeah, that's what
Oh, you
he
didn't
said.
get it? Good ordered direction,
That's what he
G-O-D.
said. That's what he said. Yeah, that's what he said. God, yeah. It's good, hard.
so people are setting on a certain
I had one question which has kind of been troubling me. They say at the time of death, whatever we think we become, and I read something similar. How do we reconcile that with what we've been learning so far? And how does that fit into?
Can you repeat your question? What happens at death that he says is worried that he has heard that what we think of at the time of death, that we become. That means next life.
Yeah.
So how does that reconcile with this? Reconcile with what?
Sorry?
Reconcile with what?
With what we've been learning.
What means you have learned many things.
Uh,
I am Brahman.
mhm.
If you realize that there is no becoming after death. In fact, there is no birth, no the death also, so the whole question becomes, is that the answer you're looking for? Or is there something else you're asking?
No, I think that's what I had in my mind. I mean, I didn't have that in my mind. I was just looking
the
at
answer
it more from a
there is
dualistic perspective.
Sri Krishna also says that in the Bhagavad Gita. The bhava that one has while leaving one body, that has an impact on the future birth. Only for unentitled people. Those who are going through. Now suppose one might ask, sort of, yeah, and maybe I won't become enlightened in this birth, so it's relevant to me. What so there, the question would be, isn't it determined by my past birth, by past karma? Or is it just what I think at that moment? Then what happens to all the past karma? So it's all the past karma that determines what you do, but especially the bhava, the thoughts that are uppermost and strong at the moment of death or at the moment of losing consciousness, they have a lot of relevance to where we go later. How do you reconcile it with past karma? It's this. We have a wide variety, spectrum of past karma. So what is awakened for the next birth has a lot of connection with what you think of at the last moment. But the point Sri Krishna is making is, in that case, think of me at the last moment, Sri Krishna says. And then he follows up by saying that you can only think of me at the last moment if you have been thinking of me throughout your life. Therefore, spend your life thinking about God. That's the point he wants to make.
Ante mana sagati.
You don't know when you'll pass away, so yeah.
Not only that, even if I know that usually that time the body and mind are so weak, at that time, I won't say near-death experience, but I was very sick at one time and sinking. And I noticed that I was sinking. The body was very sick, and the mind also was chaotic. It's very difficult to hold on to one thought. It becomes sluggish, like a mass of thoughts, none of them very clear. You can know that the mind is not clear. That you know clearly, but you can't do anything to the mind. And that's what happens when the body is weak and sickening and So it's much better to have a strong practice from the beginning, from right now. Start right now.
So by habit, the mind falls into institution.
Continuously. I know of so many such things. I have actually seen monks, more than one case, monks who had a stroke or something like that, but only semi-conscious, lying in the bed, and we are waiting for the doctor to come, and the hands are like this. Japa is going on. Japa is going on. I know another monk that in the ICU. In the ICU, it's very difficult to know whether it's morning or evening or night because it's all artificial lighting and it's in there. But the caregiver said that the monk would wake up regularly. He was dying, he died a few days later. But he woke up regularly at 3:40 in the morning. And at 4 o'clock he would struggle up with the bed like that and start meditating. Now it's a lifelong habit, what he has been doing for 60 years maybe. That can see what is the power of habit. I remember when I was sick, I was a new novice, just 2-3 years into the monastic life. And I was on an IV. I thought I'm too sick to sit up and meditate. Now I can sort of take a break. I'll lie down and meditate because I'm on an IV and all of that, so who's going to wake me? And I saw this old Swami, who must have been in his 70s, who went for an operation. They wheeled him back in. He was still under anesthesia. Next morning, so he had an operation the day before, quite a major operation I think. Next morning, early in the morning, because I was always in bed, I didn't get much sleep, so I would be awake at odd hours. I saw the whole ward is dark, and that Swami is woken up from anesthesia, and it's early in the morning, maybe 4 a.m. He is facing the wall, sitting absolutely erect and straight, and he sat in meditation for 2 hours. That was a lesson to me. So what we practice throughout the lifetime, that carries on.
But even after, say, if you were completely enlightened, would you still come back?
Don't worry about it. From your perspective, you are enlightened. What can touch you and what can worry you? Suppose you do come back in a particular birth. It will be perfect. It will be a play for you.
He doesn't want to come back to Chilovat.
From your perspective, there is no going and coming. If you do come back, it's just like you play another video. You probably want to come back. Sri Ramakrishna says something interesting. That perhaps I will come back. Why? Once you have been invited to a party, then the food in your home seems stale. What is the party? The word is the party. For an enlightened person. For us it's a nightmare. For an enlightened person it's a party. If you get bored with one continuous, homogeneous, only consciousness, bliss and being, existence, consciousness, bliss. How about, you might think, some names and forms to spice up things? Then you have the word. But it is no problem to you. It is absolutely no problem to you. The real thing is to call it enlightenment, God realization, whatever you call it, nirvana, things to get that. Or the thing is at least to make serious progress in the life.
Asking Krishna, the ability, give me the ability to meditate on you more than sing your name, chant your name, see? Because at the time of death, and my throat is full of secretions, I won't be able to chant, but able to think of a few more moments, and that's at your service.
Our monks, this is a sloka, I didn't know that. I heard a senior monk giving an instruction to the monks that cultivate the habit of reading, because the time may come when you are unable to work anymore. More than the habit of reading, cultivate the habit of japa. Maybe you can't see anymore, maybe you're too weak to read a book. But you still have a mind, you're aware to repeat the name of God. Cultivate these habits.
I think Swami Sarvapriyananda said
Something like that. I read.
Swami Purushottamanda used to sing those things so beautifully. In Belgaum.
Belgaum, Purushottamanda. There's this, what I was going to say. I have seen this monk, Lalda Maharaj. Forget his sannyasa name. He was a disciple of Swami Vimuktananda. And all his life, he worked in a tough area, that is construction, working with laborers. It was a tough job. Maintenance of buildings and all of that in Narendrapur, Ramakrishna Mission Narendrapur. Of course, when we saw him, he was retired, very old. He was in his 80s. Very tough old Swami. When I saw him, he was paralyzed in both legs, he was blind in both eyes, and I think one hand also was paralyzed. Imagine such a state. Not for a few months or years, I think 10 or 20 years. Like that. He was of course well taken care of. There were people who looked after him. I never ever saw him unhappy. By seeing him, I realized what it means to transcend body consciousness. Body consciousness, transcending body consciousness does not mean, I know it clearly by seeing him, does not mean you go out of the body like a puff of smoke. You are not bothered about the body at all. It couldn't have been comfortable. I never saw him groan or moan even once, a single complaint, nothing. If you go to him, it's all encouragement and scoldings. And you have to introduce yourself because he can't see you. He will ask you about you, how your spiritual practices are going, which center you have come from, how the devotees there are doing. Please convey my best wishes and all blessings to the people there. This is how he will talk. We have many funny incidents with him. But the reason why I am saying this is, so he had a japamala, a rosary, given to him by his guru Swami Vimuktananda. Now, the boy who looked after him, he would lie in the bed in Belurpat. Aparoksanubhuti was the place where the old Swami stayed. He would lie in the bed, and they had little barriers around so that he wouldn't roll over and fall. And every day in the morning and the evening when the boy would come, he would take the rosary and give it to the Swami. One hand worked. So he would put it on the Swami's chest and the Swami would repeat the mantra. And when it was done, the boy would take the rosary and put it in the front of the pictures of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother and Swami Vivekananda, which he had in his room. Which of course he could not see. But it was the boy's duty to put flowers there and then clean it up and remove the flowers, put new flowers next day. And one day the boy was changed, somebody else came. And he was told that you clean up the flowers. So he took the flowers, including the rosary in that, and threw it into the river. So how did I know about this? I was a brahmachari, a novice in the under training at that time. One of our masters, Shubhrata Maharaj, who was passed away now, Jushthanandaji. He was a great scholar, wonderful Swami. He has passed away now. He heard the news and he told me, this is what has happened, I'm going to meet the Swami in Arjuna. I said, let me go with you, I want to see this. So I went with him and the old Swami was lying there and he introduced himself and he said, I've got a brahmachari with me. And Swami, I heard what happened, please don't worry. I'm going to get a new rosary for you, go to President Maharaj and ask him, the President does the japa of the rosary, then you use it. And get it for you. Now listen to his words. To that Swami, old Swami's words. He heard carefully and he said, no, its task is done, let it go. Now, if you can you send someone who can read out the Upanishads and the Gita to me? Which is, he has moved to that level. For him, reading the Upanishad and Gita is not reading a book. He must have read it many times over. He really sees the reality there. The Swami was my teacher. He was so touched. He said, Swami, I will come myself. I will read it out to you every day. So that's the last time I heard. And there are many funny incidents with him because I was with him for 1 month, the old Swami. I was with him for 1 month in the hospital. I was sick. He was sick. He was the oldest patient. I was the youngest one. There's a ward in which monks are kept. So that's a very interesting word. So this old Swami was there. He was, of course, blind. And he didn't like the hospital one bit. He wanted to go back to the main monastery. All these things should not go on YouTube. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
So he did not want to go back to the main monastery. And he wanted to go back to the main monastery. He didn't like the hospital. He had his quirks. The hospital staff, he drove them wild because, for example, he will not eat. When you give him food, he offers it mentally to Sri Ramakrishna. And until he feels that Sri Ramakrishna has accepted it, he will not start eating. So if food is offered to him at 11:45, and he may actually start eating at 3 p.m., which you cannot do in a hospital. So the hospital staff had a lot of trouble trying to feed him. So I remember, he would say, call them to Belur Math, and they'll send a car for me. I'll go back to Belur Math. I don't want to stay here. And the staff in the hospital were so nice. They were saying, Swami, open your mouth. We have called the hospital. We have called Belur Math. He opens his mouth and they put one spoon in. And then, Swami, the car is coming for you. Open your mouth and push one other spoon. Swami, the car is crossing Howrah Bridge. Of course, nothing is happening at all. Yeah. And then this will finish. And this went on for days. He would be like a child who would be eager or getting ready. Say, you have to finish your food. The car is coming for you. Then finally, he got wind of their tricks. He said, call the Swami in charge of the hospital. And they would say that he's sleeping, you can't call him now. Whenever he would say, call the Swami, the staff would say, he's sleeping now, you can't call him now. Now, the Swami in charge of the hospital, it's a very big hospital. So he goes to each of the wards on different days. So he comes to our ward on Friday or Saturday, something like that. So he came on his tour with entourage of doctors and staff members. He swept through the ward. Because that's the senior most Swami, he went there and he announced himself, Swami, I'm so and so. I'm in charge of the hospital. And this Swami was lying like this. Hey you! If you sleep so much, when do you work? That Swami was taken aback. What? But all the rest of us, the patients, we all laughed.
Is that Satya
Which one?
telling him that the car was coming?
Yeah, out of love you can do that.
Okay. I just wondered.
Treat it like when you take care of a child. My I heard so many stories in that hospital because many monks passed away. So the staff members have wonderful stories. Here's a story which I don't think many people know. The Institute of Culture. Many Westerners who go there, they stay there. You must have seen Swami Nitya Swarupananda.
Yes.
Yes. There's this nurse, a male nurse, who worked in the hospital. He told me this story. He said, literally, Chintavan Maharaj passed away in my arms. And he was in the hospital, sick the last few days. He was a disciple of the Holy Mother, I think.
Yes.
Disciple of Holy Mother. And he's the one who translated Ashtavakar. I never saw him. He must have seen him. Many times. He was a very powerful personality. So anyway, this person told me the story of how this great monk passed away in the hospital. I don't think anybody else knows the story. I mean, among the monks, because it's within the hospital staff. So he told me the story was this. This young man, he was a young male nurse at that time, taking care of the ailing Swami. And day before he passed away, the Swami called him and said, look, you have served me well. Today the mother came and said, this is my last day. I shall pass away tomorrow. I have 20,000 rupees, So would it be good for you? Do you want to take it? I can give it to you before I pass away. And this man, he said, he was a poor man. He said, no, Swami, it's my blessing that I have been able to serve. I don't want money. You can donate it to someone. And he said, he didn't pay too much attention to that. Old people, sick, dying, they have so many thoughts. I remember one Swami who said, this is my last trip to such and such place. And I was a novice, I was so taken aback. I went and told the senior Swami, he's saying this is the last trip, that maybe one of the things which we read in the books, he's going to pass away now. The senior Swami said, oh, don't bother, he's been saying that since before you were born, you know. So this young man didn't pay attention to the Swami. And the next day the Swami did pass away. Before passing away, he said, I told you, the mother is coming, she has come now. My blessings are with you at first.
Heard this from another Maharaj also, that mother has said she will come when I pass away. Do you think the mother is lying? She will be there with you.
These are, of course, certainly true of the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Vivekananda, and the direct disciples. They are different category of it. There's no doubt about it. I have seen a few of them only, but they definitely belong to different categories. Kalibaka Ghosh, a beautiful story. Upen Maharaj, I've seen, I've seen him myself. Upudamat, no, yes, that was earlier. This was Upen Maharaj who passed away a few years ago. He was 102 or 3 years old. This guy used to clean mothers. We are in Jaramati. Yeah. We heard the story of sweeper in Jaramati ashram. The old man used to come and sweep the ashram grounds. And one monk who was senior to me, who told us the story. It's been published also. So when he was sick, the Swami in charge of the ashram told him, you needn't come anymore. You have been coming ever since even before we were monks, we've seen you coming. All our lives we've seen you coming. You go and rest, we will send you your pension. And then the old man said, do you think I do it for money? Listen to this, why I do this. Many decades ago, I was a little boy in this village, and the Holy Mother lived here in this house. I used to come here with my father, and I would help him sweep the grounds. And I would see all these people coming from Calcutta, these big people, rich people, educated people, monks. They would come and they would get spiritual teachings and initiation from the Holy Mother, and they would have such wonderful spiritual visions, and so many wonderful things would happen. And they would watch from a distance. One day when no one was around and she was sitting, she was so homely that she was very approachable. She was sitting, and so he screwed up enough courage to go near her. He went to her and said, Mother, I am so and so and I do this work here. And all of them come and get such things from you. Won't I get anything from you? And she said, of course, my child, you will get everything. Keep on doing what you are doing. That's all she said. She didn't give him a mantra or anything like that. And from that day, the next 60 years or so, every day with come rain or sunshine, good health, bad health, whatever, he just kept on doing it. That was his spiritual practice. So he said, that's why I do it, not for your money, Swami. And so after that, nobody said anything to him. So he kept on doing it. One day they saw his daughter had come to work. They said, what happened to your father? He's sick, he can't get out of bed. So the Swamis went to see him. And it's a wonderful thing. He actually had the vision. He said, Mother, you have come, you have not forgotten me. You have not forgotten me. So don't you see, the mother has come. So any pastor. These are wonderful stories.
He did tell us some stories of Swami Vimuktananda. We as his disciples have not really had any chance to do it.
Oh, Bhutishan, if I start now, we go on until 10 o'clock. No. The one I went was, I'll remember. Bhutishanandaji, he was the 12th president of the order. And he lived to nearly 98 plus. And even then, extraordinary saint, scholar, at the same time deeply loving. One of the most loving personalities. Why one of the most? Maybe just the most loving personality I've ever seen. Bhutishanandaji. I have seen men and women alike calling him mother. And I've seen that. Deep concern for others, very gentle, endlessly austere in his personal life, and so funny. He never smiled himself, never tried to smile himself. He would have you in stitches in no time at all. So every day was an uproar when we used to go to meet him. His jokes. So we would rush to meet him. Now I understand the force of a personality. Every day in the morning, traditionally all the monks go and bow down to the president of the order. And we would hurry to finish our breakfast so that we could go and spend as much time as we could. And we were very junior there. So we were very low in the pecking order. It's the senior Swamis who got to stand near him and talk to him. And we were pushed out of the room. So we would crowd around the windows to see like this. And they had to put little speakers on the windows and a lapel mic on him so that we could hear what he was saying. And that was, I got that for about 1 year. Every day almost. Even there, every little thing was very touching about him. Funny and touching. For example, all the brahmacharis would come. He knew it, we were all under strict discipline. So one day, and he spoke in a very drawling voice, slow voice. He said, when he reminded me of Mark Twain's famous quip, somebody asked Mark Twain, can't you hurry up? And Mark Twain, it seems, he said, I have only 2 speeds, this and slower. Swami Vimuktananda was like that. So one day he asked, he knew we were under discipline. So every day we were coming and offering pranams. He said, do they come because it's the rule? Are they enforced to come every day? Which is of course not true. Everybody just loved being there. Even the 15 minutes there would like light up your whole day. Do they come because it's the rule? Are they being told to come? And are there people, the Swamis around him said, no Swami, they come because they love you. They love to see you. He said, then it is all right.